So, I don't know how coherent this thought will be necessarily, um, but the logistics of it, I feel like it sounds logically insane, but the question is, what would it be like if we lived our lives completely backwards, like in reverse? Rather than being born young, we appeared old, right? Rather than um, us growing up, we de-aged instead. We got younger and younger and younger until basically we return into our parent, right? What if things went the reverse direction? And from a logical standpoint, that just seems so bizarre. Like, how could that even work? You just spontaneously come into existence and then um, leave by being absorbed into someone else. That's kind of weird, right? Like, that's a really weird thing. And like, how would this all work really? Because, right, like, you would, instead of eating, you would purge, basically, right? Instead of um, waking up in the morning um, and uh, getting ready for the day, you would wake up at night and, you know, rather than the day would, like, everything would flow in reverse. So it'd be like from our perspective, from our causal perspective, it doesn't make any sense because we would be affecting everything rather than, like, we would be doing the opposite of causing things, because everything happened to us. We just didn't know it yet, right? And so now we're living it in reverse, and so it feels like, that's the forward direction. Like, to you, it would feel normal if you lived in this reality. You would be like, oh, just another day. Instead of eating, I basically throw out my food, and then instead of cooking, I de-cook, right? Like, it's um, a very bizarre thought, right? But that would just be your experience. That would just be what you do, right? Just like we know, oh, the thing you do is you eat, right? And it feels like we're making the choice to eat, but I would imagine you would also feel like you're making the choice to uneat or or whatever, right? To purge and then de-cook your meal. That would feel like the normal thing. That would feel like you just that's what happens next, and you know that, right? And you could argue, oh, well, then you don't have free will. You're just a slave to, you know, how everything played out. And I guess my argument here is, when you think about it, is, how do we know that the direction we're going is actually the proper direction? We think that it's the proper direction, but in theory, it's only the proper direction for us. There could be a reality that is in complete reverse. And even though that makes absolutely no sense to us, like, how could that possibly work? That's just the reality of a world, of this potential universe. Everything, plays in reverse. And it really kind of brings into question the whole concept of what do I know? What is actually my choice? Is everything that's playing out, what I truly believe to be caused, or is it just what's already happened and I'm just living through it, right? Just because you think you are acting doesn't mean that you are. Because perfect immersion into an experience would make it so that you feel and think everything as intended. Right? When you watch a movie, they want you to feel and think a certain way. But the full immersion would be to put you in the first person and then, implant the thoughts and feelings you need to have at that given time. That would be full immersion. You would think, oh, I'm living this life. I am this life. That would be full immersion. But the reality is that you're not. And I think that that's an interesting to think about. I know that it doesn't seem logically coherent. You think about how some of these things would play out, and it's really weird and gross. But the reality is that would just be the normal way of things for us. And it's very hard to come to terms with that because we just don't know how anyone could possibly think that way, right? But why do we think what we do right now is just the proper way of things? That is just how things should be. There's really no good reason for it other than that's just how it is. That's how it's always been. That's what it should be. But there's not really a basis for that other than our personal experience. So just because we've only experienced things one way doesn't mean that's the only way things are. And I don't know. I find that interesting.
Peace out.